Hello, and welcome to UFO Week Punishment. As we approach the end of our UFO Week mini-series, I wanted to end on a topic that is a bit different. A bit of a treat is, I originally planned on only having 4 videos for this mini-series, but due to the topic of this video being split in 2, I am posting part 1 today and part 2 tomorrow. Recently I did a collaboration with a fellow YouTuber from Mad Cat Mysteries, and with this series we delve into people who came too close to the truth and paid for it with their lives. Granted, many can be mere coincidence, but how many does it take before it becomes something more?
Our story begins with American author Otto Bender. Though best known for his work with Marvel Comics, Bender had a lifelong fascination with the UFO phenomenon and was the author of multiple publications on the topic. In 1971, he wrote an extensive article entitled "The Liquidation of the UFO Investigators" for Saga magazine. The article detailed 137 scientists, alleged contactees, and investigators of the UFO phenomenon. They would all eventually go through a series of unfortunate but vaguely similar events that have strong overtones for a conspiracy theory. After reading his article, my personal opinion is that many of the 137 examples are dubious at best. Despite this, anyone who reads the article can't help but to notice certain commonalities, such as harassment, threats, the unusually high suicide rate of the 137, as well as the suspiciously recurring theme of sudden and unexpected deaths attributed to various natural causes. Through this, he effectively builds the case that those who devote their lives to raising public awareness of the alien enigma have decidedly shorter lifespans than the average Joe. If you'd like to read this article for yourself, there's a link to it in the description below. Since his 1971 publication, many have noticed the strange trend continuing that bad things happen to those who dare to go public with new information, and especially to those who advocate for full governmental disclosure on the UFO topic. In this video, we will take a look at a few of the more noteworthy cases, the majority of which have occurred after 1971. But before we continue, these cases do not prove that there is some grand governmental conspiracy to silence those who would speak out, nor does it prove that the government is withholding information from the public about UFOs. There may be other factors in these cases that could potentially offer other explanations as to what happened to these people. Certain commonalities among these cases may be chalked up to coincidence, yet when taken as a whole, it's hard not to notice many of the same themes and suspicious commonalities of Bender's 137 seemingly repeated. That said, let's continue to our first case. After serving with distinction in the Korean War, Captain Don Elkin would become a highly educated man holding multiple degrees in several fields. He was a professor of physics and engineering at the University of Louisville for 12 years. He left his position to seek out employment that would give him more time for UFO and paranormal research, which he found as a pilot with Eastern Airlines. Often piloting his own plane, he would meet with many alleged alien abductees, as well as experts on the UFO phenomenon. He had been researching the UFO cover-up for 10 years prior to his sudden death, which was ruled a suicide.
Phil Schneider. With a video about the mysterious deaths of people who have come too close to the truth, no list would be complete without Phil Schneider. Phil was a man that brought much controversy to the UFO and conspiracy world. A lot of people were infatuated with what he said, while others view him as a huge liar. Even while researching this topic, I came across the bigger conspiracy that I'll mention later. So who was this man and what did he do? Phil became popular as a man who claimed to have worked in and around the secret military base simply known as the Dulce Base. Armed with information, he attended over 30 seminars where he talked about what he saw and even provided physical proof of his encounters. Mr. Schneider was a geologist and structural engineer who claimed to have worked on building the underground military base in Dulce, New Mexico. For those who are unfamiliar with this base, according to rumors and reports, it is a multi-tiered base that houses both human and alien personnel. During one event on the base, Phil stated that he had lost some of his fingers in a firefight with the aliens against the Delta Force. With his lectures, he provided images, materials, and rocks that were of an unknown element. Many discredit him for not providing these possessions to the scientific community to test. However, I can see why he wouldn't, since I am sure he feared the objects would mysteriously come up missing. Most of what we know about the secret base comes from this man, as well as another known as Thomas Costello. Frequently, Phil received death threats to the point that he even warned his family that if he was ever found dead of suicide, that they should question it. Sadly, on January 17, 1996, he was found dead of apparent suicide using a rubber hose to hang himself. So you may be thinking, he committed suicide to further his conspiracy claims. That could be possible had other information not surfaced. In his apartment, no suicide note was found, and all his valuables were still in plain sight, but all his lecture notes and objects were missing. Phil had multiple medical conditions that required multiple pills to function, and many of them could have been used to kill himself quietly. Not only this, but he borrowed a 9mm handgun for his protection and didn't use that. With his medical problems, he barely could move his shoulders, and how the hose was wrapped around his neck, mixed with his lack of fingers, would make the task difficult, if not impossible, for him to accomplish. Outside all that, the coroner refused to go to the apartment, which is a decision that is illegal in Oregon, where the death occurred. Once the body was removed, blood and urine samples were taken, but again, the coroner refused to test them, stating the state wouldn't waste its tax money on a suicide. When the family pressured to have the samples released to them so they could test it, they conveniently came up missing and possibly destroyed. As it stands, his death certificate reports he died of suicide, even though it was originally ruled due to a stroke or heart attack. As I stated earlier, I uncovered another mysterious event while researching this topic. The wiki page from Wikipedia on Phil had been deleted under the excuse of his claims couldn't be verified and not enough people believed him. I know plenty of pages that fall under the same theme that are still very much active. While digging further, I found that a wiki moderator known as Spartas is claimed to have deleted the page on November 22, 2008. I checked into this person and he or she wasn't a member until December 2, 2009. There are no records of activity or existence, even name changes, prior to that date, and currently that user is listed under retired members, or ones who are no longer active. This all may be nothing, but again it adds to the mystery that was and is Phil Schneider.
Thomas Costello. There is a lot of conflicting information when it comes to Thomas Costello. Most sources agree that Costello was a former employee of the Dulce base and that he was a whistleblower to the atrocities that took place there. Presumably among his many allegations were that there were countless people being held against their will at Dulce, and that they were the test subjects of bizarre and horrific experiments. Shortly after going public, Costello disappeared. Many believe he was murdered for trying to bring such sensitive information to the masses. Other sources claim that he fled the US for fear of his life and is now living in an undisclosed location somewhere in Europe. Ron Rummel was a former Air Force intelligence agent and a close friend of Phil Schneider. He is perhaps most well known for his controversial work with the publication Alien Digest. On August 6, 1993, Rummel was found dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Claims have been made that no blood was found on the pistol barrel and the fingerprints were suspiciously absent from the handle of the pistol. It is also alleged that perspiration on his body smelled of sodium pentothal. Danny Casolaro was a freelance journalist who had a particular interest in Area 51 and its Australian equivalent known as Pine Gap. His body was found August 10, 1991, in his hotel room with multiple slashes to his wrist. Shortly before his death, he told his brother that he had been receiving threats. Furthermore, he he said that if anything happened to him, it was not an accident. Though his death was officially ruled a suicide, his family believes he was murdered. He was 44 years old.
As I end part 1, I wanted to mention that you should check out the channel from my friend over at Mad Cat Mysteries. He covers a lot of topics that I do not, and if he does do a video on something I have, it is always interesting to hear another person's take on this strange world. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.